You can select from a number of filter shape types by clicking on the text box above the gain control and selecting a shape. For this example, we'll use band number 5, which is assigned to 1 kHz. Starting with the first one, you have Classic Symmetrical. This is the most popular parametric EQ shape used in various mixing consoles and outboard gear, with an almost constant Q characteristic. As I increase the gain, the Q stays constant. The Classic Asymmetrical is featured in older EQs, where the boost is the same as the Classic Symmetrical, but the cut is much narrower, as you can see. Then you have Proportional 1, 2, and 3, which are very similar. Proportional 2 offers larger changes below and above plus 6 dB peak. And Proportional 3 offers extra widened bells between 0 and 3 dB. So let's compare that to Proportional 1, which is a little narrower, and Proportional 3 is wider. Again, to reset these settings, just click Command and click on the dial. Next up, you have CQ, which stands for Constant Q. You have Constant Q Asymmetrical, Constant Q Asymmetrical Reverse, Constant Q Invert, and Constant Q New. So let's start with Constant Q Asymmetrical. And this is used in some US products and mixers, where the Q is constant, but the cut is much narrower. And as you can tell, between 0 and 3 dB, you have a really broad curve. Constant Q Asymmetrical Reverse is exactly the opposite, where the boosts are much narrower and the cuts look more constant. But with this one, between 0 and 3 dB, you have a broad curve. Then you have the Constant Q Invert, where both boosts and cut characteristics are very similar. They get narrower as you crank it up louder. Same thing when you go the opposite direction. But below 3 dB, they're much broader. And lastly is the Constant Q New. And this defined Q is always perfectly maintained independent of bell gain. So very similar to the first one. So those are all the available filter shapes, but you have one more when you click on Parallel. This recreates the passive parallel equalizer. When the parallel switch is on, then none of these other filters adjust the bandwidth because it's fixed to parallel mode. So if you're in a situation where you're cranking up the gain and you're trying to audition these different shapes and nothing's changing, make sure that the parallel button is not on.